Hi, my name is Mike Hoffner with McKonly Asbury. Joining me today will be Dan Sturm, one of my business partners, and we'll be talking about cybersecurity as it relates to an employee benefit plan. We want to talk a little bit about the risks that are inherent in sponsoring an employee benefit plan, and more importantly, what you as the plan sponsor should be doing to protect against those risks.
Benefit plans are especially vulnerable to cyber attacks. There's a lot of information floating in your organization and especially going out of your organization. Plans have a lot of money. There's a lot of assets tied up in these plans, so they're definitely intriguing to someone looking to attack the plan and gain the information. Not only do the plans have a lot of money, there's opportunities from that perspective, but there's a lot of personal information, social security numbers, date of birth. Basically everything a cyber criminal would want to target, similar to credit card information. So all this information's out there. Plan sponsors may not be fully aware of how much opportunity there could be because they're overly relying on third-party service providers. The reality is a lot of benefit plans are administered by a third party. Investments are sitting somewhere else. There's a lot of people outside the organization doing things. So the plan sponsor may have did everything they thought they could do. They get a SOC report. They talk to the service provider. They vetted their service provider. But the reality is it's still there, and the information's still leaving the organization.
Dan, I think that's a really good point in that often we see organizations who sponsor a benefit plan point to a third-party service provider and say, well, no, I don't take care of that, they do. And I think we fail to understand as a sponsor that the risk still lies with us and the fiduciary responsibility for that data lies with us. So I do think it's a critical point that just because we contract with someone else doesn't mean that they take care of everything and my hands are washed of it.
No, I would agree. And I think it just happens. There's just undue reliance placed completely outside the organization. A lot of cyber policies that an organization may have, they may have neglected to include them specifically to the benefit plan. Beyond the loss of plan assets and a lot of personal information, it's also going to be a lot of lost time trying to correct any attack on participant information. One of the things you're going to have to do is communicate to all your participants that a breach did occur, probably how you're going to correct that breach and make sure that their information is not still floating around out there, or how it's going to be addressed if it is used and put in the wrong hands. So you have things like that you need to consider. It's going to be a lot of lost time, come at a lot of expense. You also have HIPAA. If you're worried about a health and welfare plan, you're going to have health information potentially that's exposed, and that will have to be addressed as well. So you could be dealing with a potential HIPAA violation.
It's important to talk about the risks, and I think Dan did a great job of covering all the reasons you should be concerned. But really the purpose of what we want to talk about today is what you should be doing and what you should be considering. And I think it's important to note that at no point can anything that you do as a plan sponsor or plan management truly guarantee against a cyber attack. But it is important to be able to demonstrate that you've done the right things and put the right processes in place to minimize the risk. One of the important things to think about is what the plan sponsor is doing in terms of its own cyber risk management program, and beyond that, to extend that and to make sure that extends to the risk management of the plan and the data involved at the plan. McKonly Asbury sponsored a webinar in the fall of 2018 focused on the basics of a cyber risk management program. If you haven't watched that, I strongly encourage it, not just from a plan perspective, but from an organizational perspective. Some real good entry-level basic information on how to design and implement a cybersecurity risk management plan. It's important to remember in the design of your cybersecurity risk management program to not just think about the controls at the plan sponsor, but to really think about, as Dan said earlier, where is all the data, where is all the information? Plans generally use multiple service providers. They use third-party administrators, record keepers, custodians. Each one of those parties has information that is considered sensitive, is considered at risk. And so as you think about a cybersecurity risk management program for the plan sponsor as it relates to the plan, you have to be thinking about the service organizations and what they're doing for the plan. Documenting the information that's housed at those service organizations should get you thinking about, what do I have in contract with those service organizations? What have I asked them to do? But most importantly, how am I as the plan sponsor monitoring what those service organizations are doing? Obtain a SOC report. SOC reports are a great way to communicate the strength of the internal controls of an organization. Obtain the service contract that you have and some of the parameters they've committed to. But if at the bare minimum you're asking the right questions and understanding the right things, you can demonstrate to your plan participants that at least you're trying. In the event of a breach, I've done all the right things in designing an appropriate cybersecurity risk management program. So the last thing to be really focused on is how you document and maintain records of what you're doing to manage the cybersecurity risk related to the employee benefit plan. It's not enough to just make sure we're paying attention to our third-party administrators. It's not enough to say that we've designed a plan and yes, it extends to the employee benefit plan. It's critical to document some evidence that you've not only taken a good hard look at where the risk is, but that you've monitored the exposure, you've redesigned your plan of attack as things have changed, as the environment of the plan has changed, as the investments have changed. So again, very critical to document what you're doing. And as you document that, it's an important part of it to think about testing the effectiveness of what you're doing. This is where reviewing those SOC reports come into play. This is where looking at the cybersecurity management program at the sponsor comes into play, and thinking about, do I need to evaluate the cybersecurity program at my organization, not just as it relates to the plan, but in general terms, but certainly thinking through, what are we doing, how are we doing it, and how do I provide evidential matter to somebody who asks that I'm taking everything very seriously as it relates to cybersecurity. I'm taking my fiduciary responsibility as it relates to my participants' information very seriously, and on a regular and ongoing basis, I'm doing the right things to manage that data appropriately.
Cybersecurity is very much in the sights of the Department of Labor, and I think it could very easily be scoped in now as part of fiduciary responsibility, both on behalf of plan sponsors and also service providers. So anybody that's a fiduciary to the plan, I think, should be aware of the things we've talked about today, especially plan sponsors. With that being said, if you have any other questions, or you would like to get a better understanding of maybe where you're at in the process with cybersecurity and what you can do for next steps, you can reach out to me. I run our employee benefit plan practice, or you can reach out to Mike Hoffner, who leads our SOC practice.